This semester, we have spent most of our time thinking about what we would call Western forms. That means European descended. Now that you begin to understand the wide range of dramas in the Western theater tradition, I'd like to introduce you to a sample of other types of theater that exist in the world. Today, we're going to be focusing pretty much exclusively on Asian types of theater. Theatrical performance, as we discussed the first week of class, really only needs a performer and an audience. What that performance can look like varies widely around the world. The Western form of theatrical drama has been incorporated and adapted into many different cultures, and our examples today are some of the traditional and unique forms of drama from Asian cultures in particular. We'll start with three traditional dramatic forms from Japan. That's No, Kabuki, and Bunraku. No is derived from the Sino-Japanese words for skill and talent, and it's a major form of classical Japanese musical drama that has been performed since the 14th century. Developed by Kanami and his son Zeami, it is the oldest major theatrical art that is still regularly performed today. So they have been producing and performing the same types of theater in Japan since the 14th century. It is a living document of culture. Then we have Kabuki, which comes after No, and it's a classical Japanese dance drama. And Kabuki theater is known for its stylizations of drama and the elaborate makeup worn by some of its performers. Bunraku is a form of traditional Japanese puppet theater, founded in Osaka in the beginning of the 17th century. There are three kinds of performers that take part in a Bunraku performance. The puppeteers, the chanters, and the shamisen musicians. So those three performers together are required to create Bunraku. So here you can see some of what a No theater looks like. You have a traditional tree in the background. All No theaters have the tree in the back. There is a long aisle that the performer will prepare in the mirror room over here, and then come out onto the stage and perform here. When they're on stage, so there you can see one of the performers, they're surrounded by musicians and chanters. The person who is the actor, this main performer in the mask, they don't actually speak. The people all around them speak and perform the drama. And they're generally stories about demons and other supernatural elements. And the important thing that makes No different from the other forms, other than it being older, is that all of the performers, the main people in the center, wear masks to show who they are. Then we have Kabuki, and as you can see, it looks very similar to the stage of No, but it's gotten much wider. It's more similar to our proscenium stage in the West. Again, we still have the tree in the background, but there are no longer any masks. So there's a lot more space on stage so that major dances can happen. Kabuki comes from the word to slant, and it was an avant-garde style of theater when it first came out in the early 1600s. It was traditionally an all-female performance ensemble. However, what we now know as Kabuki, if you went to Japan, to Kyoto or Tokyo or any of the other places where Kabuki is regularly performed, you would find an all-male cast. So this figure right here is the performer known as the Onangata, who is a man who plays a woman who is more woman than woman, which is how they conceive of this particular type of character. Kabuki theater originally began as an all-female performance troupe in the 17th century when a woman named Okuni took on the trappings of a warrior and took his sword, so the legend goes, and did an erotic dance on the shorebeds of the river in Kyoto. This provocative performance began Kabuki as a dance drama where they took the stories that they were playing in the No theater, but they danced them in a different way than was happening on the official No stages. It proved to be too provocative for the all-female company, and so the shogunate government shut down all-female Kabuki and said, no, you can't do that anymore. But it was a very popular art form, and so it was remade first with all boys and then with all men. And so you have these traditions of painting the face beautifully, like the Onigata, to be as beautiful as the all-female companies that came before. So when you see these people dancing in their costumes here and on top of the bell, they're all not masked, although they look similar to the no masks. They are actually just very elaborate makeup. Again, like in No, none of the performers actually do any of the speaking. You'll see there's a large chorus at the back of the stage, and they will chant the lines and chant the story while the performers enact it through dance in the front. Next, we have Bunraku Theater, which is the traditional puppet theater of Japan. And it was founded in Osaka in the 17th century. So Kabuki and Bunraku sort of were from the same originary point, and No is a little bit older. They also tell many of the same stories that No and Kabuki tell, but they do it with puppets. And the puppet format, as I mentioned before, there are 3 types of performers on stage: the puppeteers, the chanters, and the musicians. And so all 3 of these formats have music on the side, and all 3 of these performances also have the voice separate from the body. So there will be traditionally one chanter who will tell the story and do the voices for both of the puppets. None of the people operating the puppets are actually doing any of the voices. The main puppeteer controls the head and the right hand. Then the secondary puppeteer controls the left hand. And the final puppeteer controls the feet. And when you're learning to be a Bunraku puppeteer, you start with the feet, and then you move to the left hand, and then you finally get to be the head and the right hand. So you are leading the way that way. All 3 of these performance forms are old and traditional, but are also still very contemporary in Japanese society. So if you were to go to Japan, you could see them today, and often they take performances to universities and other cultural areas so that you can see these types of performances. And this is only a small offering of the types of theatrical forms you can see in Japan. Next we have, we'll go to Bali for a moment, the Indonesian islands. There you find a form of theater called wayang kulit, which is often referred to as Balinese shadow puppetry. You can see some of these shadow puppets here. They are very two-dimensional. What's really neat about this is that there is one performer who controls all of the puppets and the voices during a Balinese shadow puppetry show. And so the performance will begin at dusk, and traditionally it would go all through the night. And one of the interesting things is that the dalang, who is the puppeteer in Balinese shadow puppetry, is traditionally thought of as a priest. And when they come to the town to tell these stories, they think of the performance as rebalancing society. So they'll listen to gossip around town and pick up on anything that is happening in the community and integrate it into the way that they tell their stories, so that the story itself can be a way that the community can heal and think about how to move forward. Balinese shadow puppetry also involves music. That's not performed by the puppeteer, but another person. And so all of this shadow puppetry, in which they tell many traditional stories, although there are contemporary performance forms that are taking new stories and running with them. And you can see this and pick up puppets, which are made of leather generally, in Bali. The puppeteer does not make the puppets. That's another person. And finally, I'll say a few words about Chinese theater and the Peking Opera from Beijing, which you'll watch a longer video of from UNESCO, which you'll watch next. It'll be directly under this video in the Canvas link. Again, this is just a small sample of the different types of theatrical performances that exist in the world. So when we spend all of our time thinking about this is what a play is, that's one particular type of play, and I encourage you to be open to all of these different types of theater because I think there's something to be learned from all of them.